Within the grand world of Marvel Comics, there exist multiple dynamic and vital characters that serve a purpose of some kind in the vast scope of the cosmos. One of these beings is Oblivion, the ultimate endpoint for virtually everything in the multiverse that represents non-existence. Whether you're a mortal, god, abstract being to anything in between, this aspect of reality is one of the strongest beings in the verse, and for good reason, due to how overpowered much lesser Marvel characters are, who at one point or another will drift towards them at their end. It doesn't matter if you can blow up galaxies, universes, or even multiverses, this doesn't pale in comparison to what Oblivion is capable of, and then some. Another ultimate endpoint for existence and narratives themselves in the gigantic world of the SCP mythos is none other than the Scarlet King, an abstract being who, like Oblivion, is also immensely overpowered in his own right. But when it comes to these two Lords of Darkness, who would come out on top in a battle that transcends the concepts of space and time? Would the win be given to the void that predated existence itself, or the eater of infinite narratives that created primordial evils like SCP-682 and cute monsters like SCP-999, who could low-key solo your favorite verse with his tickles? We'll begin with the Scarlet King, whose original name was Karak, a Lord of the Abyss who began life as a lowly god, but as he consumed his brothers, sisters, and countless elder gods, he became deeply empowered. And with this newfound strength, he would enact his ultimatum: to curb stomp existence itself, because to him, to exist is to suffer, and so it would be better to not exist at all. The Scarlet King's power was so mighty that just by awakening, all of creation trembled, which is insane to think about because of how massive the SCP cosmology is. For starters, there are infinite multiverses, with them being composed of infinite chains of infinite universes. It's also implied that there is a hierarchy of endless multiverses, with a supposed quote-unquote true universe being one infinitesimally small piece of a larger multiverse, a fractal within a fractal, and so on. These universes exhibit beyond simple ellipse sets of dimensional planes, or in other words, these universes have beyond countably infinite sets of spatial dimensions, and have uncountable infinite expanses between each dimension, and this is where we get into Aleph sets. Aleph null or Aleph naught contains all natural numbers, the smallest infinity which contains all even, odd, and irrational numbers. So even if you said a googolplex times a googolplex was how many dimensions your universe had, it would be vastly much smaller compared to how much larger an Aleph null is. Eventually, we run out of cardinal numbers, and we have to lean into ordinal numbers, which measures not the amount of a set, but rather the order it's in. The smallest transfinite ordinal number in this case is Aleph subscript 1 or Omega subscript 1, which is a set of finite ordinals larger than all countable ones. Afterwards, we have Omega subscript 2, set of all countable and Aleph 1 ordinals, and you basically go from there, each infinite set being larger than the last one, ordinally speaking. It's also confirmed that there are innumerable layers of non-existence and numberless layers of transcendent reality beyond the conceptual duality and distinction between existence and non-existence, with each layer saying the lower one is fiction, and it is also confirmed that there are at least millions of afterlives, likely an infinite amount as well. Beyond these multiverses is the Tree of Knowledge, from where all of creation stems and as such dwarfs these uncountably infinite dimensional planes. Then there's the Noosphere, the realm of human thought that encompasses ideas, emotions, and abstracts, which to be honest is not quite clear on where exactly it does stand in relation to the grand multiverse, but I'd reckon it exists on a similar scale, being that it is implied to being a platonic realm or something that showcases a true, perfect form of something, whatever it may be. This is further implied by the Wanderer's Library, an infinite hub of information, being called the platonic concept of a library. I don't think that all platonic concepts automatically scale to outerversal, but being that the library exists above the infinite multiverses and the Noosphere is intertwined with it, and humans specifically, it should be on this level at least. Outerversal being a level of power or status that allows a character to destroy, manipulate, or create a realm that is composed of uncountable infinite dimensions, but it can also be interpreted as being beyond the very concept of dimensions itself, depending on what side terminology you use. This Platonism is further implied by SCP-682 being called a true form of a lizard, which does make sense given that it is also a constant, a concept I'll touch up on later on. To really visualize how large the Noosphere really is, we have to take a look into an SCP construct called SCP-7650, a hyperdimensional sphere so large that it reaches all uncountables prior to the inaccessible cardinal, which in simple terms, it is a number so large that it cannot be reached by smaller numbers and as such has to be assumed to exist. Infinite cardinal numbers are not only uncountable, but they cannot be attained by simply adding quantities smaller than themselves and cannot be accessed by lesser cardinals. Another way to view it is that no matter how many dimensions a being jumps through, it'll never be able to reach a realm that is mathematically and existentially outside of that being's reach. Basically, these constructs in the noosphere are easily outerversal and can extend well into the high outerversal levels. However, you don't need to be a big dog to threaten the noosphere, since there is SCP-5712, who was so OP that it could have consumed the entire noosphere in just a couple of years, with such a huge threat outright being referred to as a bottom feeder, with there being revealed to be much more dangerous opponents within the infosphere, the realm of all thought in the multiverse, and as such dwarfs the already a gigantic noosphere, inferring it exists on an even higher transcendental plane. Now, why is the cosmology important for this case? Well, in the grand battle for creation, the Scarlet King's army managed to damage the roots of the Tree of Knowledge, whose roots already dwarf infinite multiverses. Additionally, the Scarlet King in his intense battle with the Brother's death was able to turn the noosphere in on itself and affect it. And this wasn't even from him trying to affect it directly, this is most likely just a side effect of their battle. In any case, Jorik's Scarlet King is easily high outerversal off this feat alone. However, like the Chaos King is one aspect of Oblivion, SCP-1, Tufto's proposal, denotes it as being the very idea or concept of the Scarlet King, with the one that waged war on creation being a mere aspect or a shadow of it. There's also SCP-6747-C, the constant of the Anafabula that exists in the infosphere, and the culprit behind SCP-2747. The Anafabula event that threatened to destroy infinite stacks of narratives and multiverses by extent, with constants being omniversal algorithms or systems that denote vital aspects of existence in narratives. SCP-6747-C also scales comparably to SCP-3125, the constant of chaos behind the Fifth religion, that encourages reality warping through your thoughts as showcased with SCP-1425, whose effects could threaten the entire universe if it kept being used. SCP-3125 and by extension SCP-6747-C are so massive that even beings that are defined by Aleph sets or uncountable infinities are under it in hierarchy. Essentially, the Scarlet King's true forms are so massive that even high outerversal beings are nothing compared to them. These transcendental forms of the Scarlet King would also scale well above the High Elder Gods, who are so powerful that they can casually destroy portions of the Tree of Knowledge. With this form, the Scarlet King was threatening to reach the Alpha Layer, a realm beyond the SCP multiverse itself, where Andrew Swan beings reside, who are essentially authors that, carry out what goes on in the multiverse. Which is a level that not only transcends the endless multiverse hierarchy, but the Tree of Knowledge, the Noosphere, the Semiosphere, which is the sphere that contains information about reality, the Infosphere, and the Pataspheres, which are the narrative sets perceived by humans that ultimately helps the events of a timeline unravel. Already given this being further reached than even SCP-3812, who could already ascend through infinite stacks of narratives infinitely. So, as we can see, the Scarlet King is easily multitudes of layers above high outerversal, but how does that stack up compared to Marvel's cosmology? As revealed through magnitudes of comics, it is confirmed that each universe in Marvel is composed of infinite layers as stated in Chaos War, by the Beyonder, and in the early Man-Thing runs, meaning that even the normal Marvel universe is outerversal off the bat. We've even seen characters such as the Silver Surfer ascend through 15,000 dimensional layers, and he's not even an abstract. It is also confirmed that these dimensional layers cross through conceptual infinity. Whether or not that extends into uncountable infinities represented by Aleph sets is up to interpretation, but the classic comics do refer Alephs. Each of these universes also branch out infinitely for every action and outcome, which then branch out even furthermore. Each universe is also described as being dreams folded within other dreams for infinity, with it being further extrapolated on that every thought from every being, whether they are alive or dead, makes universes without end. There's realms such as Asgard that exist within the main universe and operate on magic time, implied to be a transcendental or form of time that is beyond mortal or normal time, which is reiterated time and time again with the comics detailing how Asgard operates on very different laws that the mortals cannot comprehend or fully explain with science, unless of course you're Tony Stark or someone of comparable mental prowess. Asgard is also connected to the world tree, Yggdrasil, which contains a maybe infinite number of realms or universes within it, and also contains abstract beings such as embodies of the Living Tribunal and by extent, other abstracts. This structure will be important later on. Each universe is at least trillions of light years long, but is more than likely infinite or endless as described in multitudes of comics. In addition to these layers, there are countless or endless gaps between each dimension as showcased in Strange Tales. Marvel follows the mentality of sets of infinity, with it being described by Kubrick that even though they themselves have infinite power and transcend time-space, are still not as powerful as Celestials who have a higher infinity to their power level. He says that you can think of it this way: you can have a set of all even or all odd numbers, and although are infinite, would still be smaller than a set of all real numbers, which would include not only all even and all odd numbers, but also all rational and irrational numbers. Beyond the multiverse, there exists a macroverse, which exists above and separated from baseline reality. Above that is the overspace, which is above and apart from all realities, which would include the macroverse. This is a realm where abstracts can meet. Above the overspace is the superflow, the informational space between universes. Here, everything is simply concepts and information to personify the building blocks of the Omniverse, which is itself composed of infinite multiverses. Beyond the superflow, where omniversal eternity and other abstracts reside, is the neutral zone, which in the words of Blue Marvel, is a space where positive and negative matter coexist. Outside of that is, well, the outside, which is beyond eternity's influence, where there is no space, time, concepts, or death. Here is where Oblivion has dominion. There is a realm beyond this called the Mystery, which is implied as being the White Hot Room, and is outright stated to be a higher plane. There's other parts of the cosmology such as the Nexus of all realities and the Neverspace, a realm where all broken timelines go to perish. To really get into how infinite Oblivion's power really is, we have to take a look into how strong other beings in the Marvel Universe really are. For starters, we'll begin with Skyfathers such as Odin, who in his battle with Seth was tearing at the fabric of the entire multiverse and was affecting the entire space-time continuum, with it being further extrapolated by Seth that there are infinite layers in reality, further confirming what was said in Man-Thing and by the Beyonder himself. And to make it even more insane, Odin wasn't even at full power and was tripled to the level of immortal. He's also nullified a fire that could have wiped out the World Tree, with these World Trees containing, well, abstracts. It's consistent that they can do this much, since in the battle with the Other in Galactus, Scryer was capable of destroying the entire multiverse as well, with Odin rivaling Galactus' average levels of power, but not at his peaks. Additionally, Odin, even with 1,000 years of prep time, all the power from his Asgardians, and the Odin Sword, was unable to defeat even one Celestial for good, with the massive Scarlet Celestial named Arishem being so strong that even 3 Skyfathers were unable to fend him off. Even as mighty as Arishem is, his power is inferior compared to the prowess of Exitar the Exterminator and the One Above All, the leader of the Celestials, not to be confused with the One Above All. There's also beings such as Satanish and Mephisto, who in their battle threaten not only the transfinitely layered universe, but the dimension they were fighting in and Mephisto's own dimension, which is arguably even larger than the normal universe, going by just how large the Dark Dimension and the dimensions of other Hell Lords are, with the formless Dark Dimension having infinite dimensions and universes within it for comparison. Plus, Hela and Mephisto's battle would have made Ragnarok look pale in comparison, with Ragnarok already being the destruction of Asgard. Point is, these Skyfather and Helllord level beings are already hyperversal to outerversal levels, with Celestials scaling beyond them, and with the exception of Skathan the Approver and other high-ranking Celestials, the abstracts scale even higher. If that wasn't enough, we've seen Infinity Gauntlet Thanos slap around multiple manifestation bodies or the avatars of abstracts, including Eternity. Keep in mind that even as small as these beings are compared to their full might, they are still able to fight in 16th dimensional space and outright on the highest level of reality possible, as showcased in the battle between Infinity and Oblivion, meaning that even the bare facets of these conceptual beings are already high outerversal. Of course, we cannot talk about Oblivion without also covering the Chaos King, previously known as a Japanese goddess, Amatsu Mikaboshi, who ravaged through and absorbed multiple pantheons and hells, wrecked almost 99% of the infinite multiverse, and forced Death to dip from existence itself because of how scared she was for her own safety. With Hercules stating that the Chaos King was the greatest danger the multiverse had ever known, this would put him above Infinity Gauntlet Thanos and of course Abraxas, whose power was so massive he could curve stop multiple Galactuses, and who forced Reed Richards to destroy Multi-Eternity, or the true form of Eternity, with the Ultimate Nullifier in attempts to stop him. However, what makes it even more crazy is that the Chaos King evolved into an even stronger form called the True Chaos King, which even then was essentially called fodder to the might of Oblivion, who claims that his mere presence can kill the reader, a state of affairs that would please him to no end. In conclusion, although you can say that Marvel extends into the high outerversal ranges by several layers, the SCP multiverse in scope is much larger due to how many more transcendences there are between the alpha layer and the multitudes of spheres that compose dimensionality, information, and narratives within the multiverse, which would generally give the Scarlet King the win in this versus battle off of pure cosmology alone. Ability-wise, they don't differ too much since both of them can affect the readers or authors, can alter reality, space-time, concepts, and the like. Maybe if you believe that literally everything like the White Hot Room, the Nexus of all realities, the Abyss, and the House of Ideas would go to him, and everyone we've seen thus far in the Marvel Universe would also be consumed by him, including characters like the One Above All, the Black Winter, the Beyonders, the One Below All, or Null, then there's certainly an argument to be made that Oblivion could give the lower aspects of the Scarlet King trouble, like Jorik's Scarlet King, or SCP-2317's hyperdimensional form, that fought multitudes of high outerversal anti-Noospheric entities. As much as I love Oblivion for how edgy he is, I don't think it is a contest when it comes to the constant form of the Scarlet King, or its abstract form that is the reason for most, if not all aspects of the Scarlet King existing in the multiverse in the first place. But yeah, I hope that you learned something about the cosmologies of both verses, and the power of these two edgelords of non-existence. Please let me know who you think wins. Thanks for watching, and peace out.